On this episode of Spirit Speaks, we're joined by GRABARCZYK, the Mandala Medium. Well, we just arrived in Long Valley. We're getting ready to walk to the Long Valley pub. GRABARCZYK is joining us, who is a trance medium, and he makes beautiful mandalas.
Yeah.
So we're excited to get inside to Long Valley pub and talk with him. But just walking through the town of Long Valley is beautiful. All these old buildings and restaurants.
And it just stopped raining for us, and the cloud cover is just over the Schoolies Mountain over there. So it looks really neat out here right now. So it's great to be in the town again.
Let's start. I mean, I would love to ask you, how did you discover you had this intuitive ability? Like, when did it come to you? Like, well, maybe I'm a little different.
So I have a family that has this kind of gift, and I had even my great-grandfather was a minister, and people would go to him and ask him to wish things away. So he would wish illnesses away. Not one of my skill sets, but could wish it away. And my father is so gifted intuitively that they don't let him go and do any kind of raffle or any kind of tricky tray thing or whatever, because he always wins. He's Spanish.
Oh wow!
And
not him.
And then I have I think my grandmother was born with the veil. And so there was all of that going on with her. So I know from our family that was kind of in the air. So as a kid, one of the really powerful things, I did this with my sister, if I was at church, and I thought everybody could do this, I would watch the priest in the auric field would go whoop, and then back, and then he would jump because it would move. And we thought everybody could kind of do that. I also had experiences of talking to my grandmother, who I was close with. When she passed, she continued to talk to me and teach me, because even though she was crossed over, she was down the hall in a rocking chair, and I would go there and talk to her and see her, and to me that was very normal. So I had a comprehension of things at an early age that would surprise people. And I remember my mother even saying, you would say things as a kid, we would know, what the heck, how would you do that? How would you know that was happening? Or how would you know about that? And I would just, knock it out. And then I kind of, as I got a little older, by the time I was 8 or 9, I was fascinated with systems. Numerology became really interesting to me. Then I got a little into the tarot, and then I got into other things too. And then when I was 15, a friend of mine's brother brought me to Morris County College, where they were having a seminar on psychics, and they had the New Jersey police. There were some different townships there. There were psychic investigators working with detectives. And I remember these people, 16, they're looking at me who the hell is this? Who is this guy? Because they were all drawing arrows up and commenting and all excited. And I didn't know really what to even make of it. And then when I was 18 or 19, a friend of mine, Alex, his mother was Dorothy Allison. Dorothy Allison was the investigator at the Teaneck
Unsolved Mysteries.
Unsolved Mysteries, all of that stuff. Really, really crazy woman. So, fun. So she
and she looked tough.
She was. Oh yeah, don't mess.
Yeah.
So I go in there, I'm with Alex, right? And, I meet her the first time, and she's, putting together her spaghetti meal, and she looks at me and she goes, "Oh, you're one of us. Great." She goes, "What's a pasta?"
Yes, I do.
Very what? Here we go. So
that's my kind of lady.
It was what? Who are you? What? So she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "You got the gift." She said, "I can tell." She said, and then to her, it was so matter of fact. And then years later, when I was about 23, I was in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and I was in this beautiful little bookshop that I loved, and I heard a book fall from behind me. I don't know accidentally hit it or if it fell on its own or what. But it falls down and it says, being alive is being psychic. And it was written by a woman who did channeling work in Washington Crossing, and that is a hotbed of activity. Holy cow, you can be in a coma. and they will reach you. And I know people who go in there and immediately have physical responses. Yawning, discharging energy for that, coughing, shake. It's something.
I went to Washington's Crossing for when they do it around Christmas time.
Yes.
Where they bring the boats and they all are dressed up in character. Through one of the homes that they had open, and I asked the tour guide, I'm like, do you have hauntings? Oh yeah. They even embrace it.
Of that.
Oh yeah, this place is haunted.
They're just like the town. Oh, there's something in this place too with the military. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so and
there is.
Later, they're saying, not earlier. So anyway, I read her book, and then I booked an appointment to see her, and she kind of reminds me of how important intuitive work is, because it can have such a profound influence on people, and it has to be really carefully communicated, because if it isn't, there can be problems. So she had told me that, and now I'm like, I don't know, 24. She said, you're going to be doing channeling work. She said, you're going to channel the group. And she said that it will start with automatic writing. So I was kind of like, okay. And I kind of felt like that. So I was doing my automatic writing, which in a way led to this. And I had this experience. I was in this restaurant in the city, and I was with two friends. And I just started speaking in a tone that I quite hadn't done before, and the two of them, I remember one of them was having some kind of meal, so she had food and a fork. The other one was fixing up her makeup, and I started telling the one who had broken her leg what that meant. And as I'm talking to her, a ski accident of some sort, and while I'm talking about that and giving information about it, the energy became so intense in a way that they froze in position for the time that it took for me to communicate it, and then she went back to her meal. And she goes, what the hell was that? Because it felt important, urgent. Now, I've learned over time that I ask always to people, like, may I have the permission? Is it okay? And even if I'm doing something where I'm doing a reading, I will, in the process of it, knowing that we're going to go to a place that might be challenging, are you okay if I speak to this topic? And if they say no, that's fine, because I don't have an attachment to any of the outcomes here. I'm really just a facilitator. So from there, I ended up meeting a friend who was really into this. We became very close. And then I had the very first mandala-like experience was when I was probably my late 20s, early 30s. I had this dream, and in the dream, and it was a very vivid, kind of surreal, like I'm in the middle of some kind of video game where the colors were wet. They were very vibrant, like what things may come, like the Robin Williams film. It's like everything was dripping and wet. It was wild. Yeah, everything was vivid. And in it, there was this wall, and behind the wall was a field of manifestation. And intention was creating whatever it was that I was experiencing or focusing on into a form. So I would have an idea, flowers would bloom out of the ground, or birds would fly out, or some object would come out. And each of them was tethered to whatever thought I happened to have. And then I asked, what about my friend? What does he look like? And this wild triquetra-like, I found out what that is later, it's a three-pronged thing. You can think Led Zeppelin has that symbol. That came out glowing, and I sketched it kind of like Close Encounters, where they're all obsessed with the Devil's Rock, when they're doing
he's with his potatoes, he's making one
exactly,
in his dish.
They're like bringing in like shrubs from the front yard to the living room and setting up. I was doing it like that because I was so into it. It felt so important and powerful and necessary, and I was just wow. So I did that, and then I started doing these medicine wheels about it, and then I would kind of like take medicine wheels and I would put inscriptions on it, and then I put crystals on those, and I give it to people to have some kind of benefit, and then it just kind of fell apart, and I just went into the traditional world that I was in. So years later, I ended up getting a business that was kind of in the world of marketing. I had it for about 20 years. And then I had a series of events happen where a relationship failed, the business failed, there was property that was due to me from somebody, that blew up, I had a car accident, and everything went to crap.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like boom, 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 boom. And I wasn't getting anywhere, no one would hire me, I was like, oh. So a friend of mine has said, you know, I have a buddy, I know somebody who's a psychic. And I was like, oh, that would be fun. So I go to this thing and meet him. And he works in this medical mediumship. And I showed him, we were talking about that shape. I draw it, and he goes, oh, I can tell you who that person is through the drawing. And I said, oh, okay.
How? Yeah, tell me more.
Tell me more. Please. And then he did, and I went, accurate.
Wow.
I said, that's who they are. And then, what?
Oh, no, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just sorry. I was just acknowledging that. Yep.
So when I did that, he goes, you should do these. These are like the thumbprint soul imprint of the person in two dimension, but they really are, when I see them, they're three-dimensional, they're pulsing, they have color, they have sound, they have variations in light and all this other stuff. So I did one, and people liked it, and then I kind of continued to do them. Now, I'm doing this kind of like, you know, for fun. And I'm making money at it, and I wasn't really getting any other income so much. I had to do like some pretty crappy jobs to get by, but I did. And then I met one of these little expos, you know, that they have. Like there's all of these like little teeny expos, and I've got my little artwork. And by this time, I've had probably about 20 or 30 of them, and I'm kind of selling them, etc. And there's this woman who's there, and she goes, oh, she said, this is really interesting. And then I said something to her about her business. I said something to her friend. I got her friend's son who had died coming in, who's really got a great sense of humor, I might add, even now. And she goes to me, oh, would you want to, her name is Deb Peterson of the Wellness Gal. She goes, would you do a reading tomorrow? Or would you come tomorrow? Because I have a friend, that's right, her friend Betsy, who can look at the work, and she has an art background and she can help you. It's like, fine. So I go to this event, it's at the Mountain Lakes Country Club. So I go to the Mountain Lakes Country Club, Betsy does a no-show, she's not feeling well. Deb goes, okay, well, you're here, you want to do readings? I'm like, I haven't done this before. I really
put you on the spot.
She basically like took the whole table, like where the people were signing in, and just cleared it out. And she goes, "Clear, you're here." And I was like, "Okay." So I start doing the readings, and they're successful. And I had said to her, I was like, "Okay." She goes, "Yeah, that was really, really good." I was like, "What?" And then she goes, "Would you? You know, we kind of like, you want to do more?" And I said, would you want to rep me? And we had this conversation, and she thought about it, and she got back, and she goes, sure. So then I started doing like little readings. Fine. Then Betsy had said, I want to put together a gallery reading. And I'm like, a gallery reading? So what a gallery reading is, as you may know, but for those who don't, we had about, 18 people or so, maybe more, in a room. I don't know any of them. I mean, I don't know I don't know who's coming, I don't know what's going on, and I'm just nervous. And so I go in, and then I got the downloads, and then I just work from left to right. Bum, 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 bum. This one. We had a lot of, we laughed, we had fun. I got like a bunch of mandalas from that. I've got like a whole bunch of people, like three people. One of them ended up getting 7 mandalas. for their family. And then I ended up doing other gallery readings out of that. I got like 4 or 5 sessions. She took me back to some room to make me escape the craziness. I met a woman who I had a past life experience with, which was at a really wild time where I said, I know you. She said, I know you too. I'm in a field. She said, so am I. We're both wearing white. She goes, yes, we are. You're both women. I said, yes, we are. It's like in Flanders, so someplace like that. I said, yes, it is. There's trees behind you. She goes, yes, there are. It was just so weird. Yeah. So we go to this whole thing about connecting. And then I did other ones. I did one in New York City with Monica Eichen, who is connected to the 9/11 memorial in Bloomberg and all of that stuff. And that was wild because I'm in the Upper East Side with all of these people that are used to doing Edwards and the best of the best. I did that. And all of these people over here who kind of knew about me were like, how are you doing this? Like, nobody does this. You have to have training, you've got to go to special classes. And I went, just do it. You just grab from what
it was always inside you.
You don't know. I think one of the things that's so important is to allow, and the great enemy of creativity and spiritual development is fear. So fear is, the only thing to fear is fear itself. Fear is the block to all love, to all enlightenment, because it causes attachment. And then attachment causes inflammation, and inflammation causes conflict and problems, etc. Look what's going on. So then I kind of started to do more and more of that, and then people started supporting me in really interesting ways. The print shop that I would go to have my mandalas printed when I would do a big show, there was a big outdoor festival, and I'm going to be doing banners. She goes, don't worry, I'll cover that for you.
Wow.
She goes, don't worry about it, I'll cover it. And I was like, what? She goes, yeah, no problem. And then they made a mistake on one, so I had 2 of them, and I still have them. A bank that I was connected to, money was really tight at the time, and I was having troubles with the overdraft. She goes, don't worry, I will, from my personal account, give you money to cover yours, so you go. Because I was out of state, and there was no way that I could draw from a credit card and cover an expense, so she covered it. People were like, this jeweler that I know who does interpretations of this and are really quite beautiful. She asked me for a design that I was working on, and of course now I'm not wearing it. She asked for the design that I was working on, and they 2 of them created this beautiful bolo design, and they gave it to me. I mean, it has been an endless sea of support and care and nurturing that I could never have conceived of. And I got all of these introductions, and all of these other people who want to be a part of it. It just kept rolling out in this kind of a weird cosmic way. So most recently, with this, I've been trying to figure out ways of adapting this design so that I can get it out into the world, because I feel it has value, that these portals, as this one woman called them, have some kind of potency to them. And then I ended up remembering somebody that I knew who does manufacturing right here in New Jersey, and she said, you just tell me what you need, we'll set you up a booth, we'll get you going, and bon voyage.
Yeah. So, no, I love how you're talking about like the this to the this to the this, and how it's been beautifully unfolding for you.
It's like soul nudges,
Yeah. And where do you get the courage or the knowing to say yes to what's being offered to you? Is there...
I feel in a way I had no other choice.
Interesting. Okay.
I really don't feel I had another choice. Because one of the things about loss that's so important, and why so many people blossom after loss, is that it takes away our options. It takes away our plan Bs. And when we have to commit. If I'm doing something, anything, and I'm doing it with a thought of, if it doesn't, I'll go with plan B. If I'm having some kind of backup plan, not really committing to it. You know, we don't think about, like, when we take a breath, it's like, well, you know, if I can't breathe today, I'll just go for my plan B. No, we take the breath. You do the action. You take the risk. And what happens is that life, there's a great, one of the affirmations in there is, as I say yes to life, life says yes to me. That kind of engagement, and I love the other thing that I found out recently, where they were doing studies on longevity, and the people who live the longest, the biggest agent of their longevity wasn't about diet, wasn't about exercise, wasn't about the medical program, wasn't about whether or not they had their shots. It was, do they talk to strangers?
Yeah.
Do you talk to strangers?
Do you reach out? Do you connect?
Do you connect? Because if you're not connecting, you're not flowing. If you're not flowing, everything has to flow. Money has to flow. Love has to flow. Energy has to flow. If it's not flowing, it's going to create inflammation. Inflammation leads to disease to death. So energetic connections that exist between people are just as important as commerce or business or anything else, more so really, because our lives depend on it.
Yeah.
It's fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
Developing, like, how long did that take you so you could say that I feel that I can
So I had not
properly do this?
I had not, when everything blew up, I was already in my 60s, because I'm 64. So I feel like the Beatles song. So I came into this so late that I didn't feel like I had the time to mess around with this. So I've been doing this for just a few years. But the speed, okay, so what is it? You know, the story of the bamboo, how a bamboo has to be a certain circumstance with right around the rain, right around it has to be so specifically done. Then once the bamboo is taken, root, you can't kill it, right? So it took me 40 plus years to get to a point where I could manifest this kind of stuff. But all of that 40 plus years was the groundwork necessary to create the foundation. Because one of the things that's so important in this process of allowing is recognizing the appropriate timing of the event, which comes and echoes back through the results of success that showcase its value. Because otherwise, if I'm doing this from a perspective of ego, I'm doing it saying like, well, I know where this is going to go and I have it figured out. If it doesn't work the way that I want to, then I'm going to manipulate it. No, you have to kind of just go with it, pay attention to the experience, follow the breadcrumbs, follow the trail, follow the energy, and then it will let you know as you need to know what you need to do. You can't preconceive of it. If you set it as an intention before you do it, you're going to end up like, don't give up before the miracle. Don't give up before the mystery expresses itself, because the things that could be offered are so far greater than what I could possibly conceive of. Yeah. And none of this was something that I expected at all. None of these things. They were all so outside of any kind of belief system I may have had.
Well, it's so interesting because I think I recall that you have a marketing background too.
Yes.
And it seems like it's kind of weaved into how you've been able to express your business and your brand.
Yes. Well, what's so weird, yes.
Have that background experience on the computer creating.
Yeah, I have a background. So I have a background in design. I am a Pratt graduate. I have a degree in art direction, and I also have a degree in music, which is interesting because the voice is important. A lot of people who do readings have a vocal background, and the stuff, the things that I was doing for these businesses, well, now I can do it for my business, and they never kind of got maybe what it was that I was doing, or I wasn't successful with them because other people were commandeering my energy or my creativity to suit their own end, and the universe was like, enough of that. You keep giving it, you're giving it away. You have to take care of yourself. I always look at energy as a form of currency. I have to have coming back what I'm giving out. If I'm giving more, that I'm receiving, my arm, my shoulders start hurting, my body gets fatigued, I get tired. If the energy is good, it's because the balance between the flow of giving and receiving are even. Price for giving is receiving, right? So the giving and receiving have to be balanced. If I'm denying or pushing back or holding from receiving certain things, that's also a poor giver. So I have to be in a constant state of allowing. So all of that kind of moves the energy around in such a way to really kind of let it happen. And all of the skill sets that I thought had no value or I would never utilize now come into the fore, because even with production and setting up all sorts of supply chain work and working with vendors.
You have that experience.
I have that direct experience.
So all that stuff that you did prior to this,
yes,
almost like your soul being just driven along, like you needed to do that to do what you're doing now.
Yeah, all of those different, and this is true of everybody. We will have all of these random events that seem so disconnected. It's just like, why would, what would that event have to do with this event? And how is it but collectively, if you added up all of the different things that I do, they're perfectly suit me for this work.
Yeah. If you see me like looking around, I'm looking at the windows. As you're speaking, a ladybug landed on the window pane right behind your head. And it stayed there. I'm like, how did this whole place, ladybug, it's just like chilling out, like right behind the window.
And what's so interesting is that I was just talking to a neighbor about this. So, when we had all the stink bugs coming in from, invading us, the ladybugs seem to play some role. I don't know. I'm not an entomologist. I don't know all of the details of this, but they seem to play a role. So I've always been very kind to the ladybugs. There's always ladybugs in my place. Like they're, and they're around all the time. And they're like, there's one in the sink right now that's just kind of living there for a while.
There's one here too.
No, I have them in my house too. Yeah. And I'm just
like,
let them be. I'm
love
like,
it.
yeah.
Here you go. They just kind of move around. And sometimes I kind of scoop them, move them over here. They kind of go across. I'll be working on the table and I see them like.
Love all creatures, right? All creatures.
They like travel across. I just had a kid, 3-year-old in a diner, come up and give me a big hug and thank me for something, and I never knew him before. I had people tell me with their pets that they, yesterday I was with this woman, her bunny rabbit was like glued to my foot. People's cats lick me. The dog doesn't like anybody, but they like you. So I'm not
they could
here to do anything. Oh, they know. Like spirits, so they're not, their I amness, if you would, is so established that they have nothing to prove. We're not like that. We're kind of living in a state of coming back to, we kind of like gave up our own natural knowing to learn natural knowing.
Yeah.
I say to people, you learn what you learned to survive, and then you unlearn what you thought was your survival necessity so that you can thrive. Or, in a more potent way, that which we think is necessary to our survival, or those compulsive acts that we use to survive, are the things that kill us. When we self-medicate, or we do things where we go into some kind of state of consciousness that is detached in a way that doesn't allow us a true experience. It gives us the opportunities to discern certain kinds of choices that would really best serve us. We kind of, we kind of go into our easy chair and detach, where in all things, engagement is what matters, and there's nothing more engaging than meditation, for example.
People with anxiety and stress, the doctors push pills when if you just did a meditation and you get into that state of consciousness.
Or talk to your neighbor. Yeah. Just talk to your neighbor.
Love thy neighbor, right?
Talk to your neighbor. Walk outside. It's beautiful. Even on this
nature.
Gray day, it's gorgeous out there. Yeah. I think what is so important is to remember that we're all part of a collection of we're all part of a collection of a oneness. We're never alone. We can choose to feel that way. It's our opportunity. We have the right to do that, but it's not true. So when we act in a state that is untrue to our nature, we're immediately in an inflammatory state because we have to defend the action of disconnection, which in of itself manifests as a physical state of problem.
And you put up those spiritual blocks too when you turn yourself in.
Oh yeah. The spiritual blocks. There's no way that people can be doing readings effectively if they're blocked. Now at the same time, you don't want to be some kind of weird open channel that allows
like
every kind of freaky
talks.
every kind of like creepy thing to come in. No, you just kind of got to be careful with that too. But the state of being in a state of awe, being in a state, because when we were talking about the connection with some of the things we talked about root chakra, that blows my mind. And I'll have people like, oh well, you should. No, why not? Why not make a big deal about that? Why not go, wow, that is really wild. Or, wow, that is really coincidental and fascinating. Wow. Or even if it isn't coincidental, if you want to say it's part of the cosmic plan, wow, it's part of the cosmic plan, and we got to witness that. Isn't that great? It is such a different way of being than, like I knew it would happen, and I could tell, and I've got it all figured out. You want to die quickly, act like you got it all figured out. Because guess what? You're not offering the world anything anymore. Because there's no growth within spirit that allows the energy gestalt of that, the expression of that, which is the most important thing we can do is our modeling. I say to people, you want to make a difference in the world? You want to make the world a better place? You want to make, you want to be like a big impact for love and support? Be the best you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Let the world take care of itself. You be the best you. You be the best you, the rest will be fine. Because if I don't have responsibility for myself, the world has to address it. When I have the responsibility for myself, the energy of that echoes out to the world in such a way that it reminds those people, like for some of the stuff, the weird kind of coincidental, even when we were there, when we were, we met in that one restaurant, when I was talking to another woman, those light nudges are those little cosmic hellos that say, yes, you are correct. This is the way to go.
I always say, smile at somebody, 9 times out of 10, they're going to smile back.
Exactly. Exactly.
Smile at them. What day that they've been having or what happened in their morning routine, and
they're not randomly placed. Yes, people are not randomly placed. If you go and you feel like, for example, one of the things that I've been doing recently is if I feel an energy with somebody, I'll ask them, even if I don't know them, I say, is it okay if I talk about your timeshare? No, is it okay?
I want to get out of that.
They're like, okay, go ahead.
Is it okay if we, I said I do energy work, and then they'll come forward, and I have met recently a number of people and then connected them with others, and the gratitude that they've expressed about this is amazing because they were waiting.
Yeah.
They were waiting. They're like a little beacon of light waiting for somebody to notice them. And if more intuitives took it upon themselves, because I'm supporting this for people in this business, to when they find someone who is in the same, if they find themselves attracted energetically, I don't, like in the vibe of it, speak to that. What do you have to lose? Yeah. You may look for, who cares? Who cares? Just speak to it. And then they're like, oh my God, I'm so excited. I've been wanting to do this forever. I never knew. And thank you for introducing me to this person. I love them. And then I'm like, yay. And then I'm on to the next thing already. Yeah. And when that is the greatest reward. Because then I'm feeling like, in my own way, there's a concept in the Seth material called value fulfillment. Value fulfillment is seen as, from his perspective, as an evolutionary state where the quality of life is dependent upon the value fulfilled within the spirit of the person. So value fulfillment comes from risk. Because how are we going to know that it works unless we risk it? So every single day, this was a risk. Yesterday when I was doing this big intensive hypnotherapy session, that was a risk. Tomorrow is a risk. Every day is a risk. And that's great because living in risk is the way to establish trust. And living in a state of trust is the way in which we create this incredible opportunities for experience in life.
And excuses, too. Like Wayne Dyer, he always said, excuses be gone.
Yeah.
When you live in, well, if I do that, this, people might think this of me. Or if I tell people that I believe in this, people will think this of me.
What other people...
You're afraid to make that.
Yeah, one of the things I love is what other people think about me is none of my business.
Yeah.
And it's, and why would I tell people, why would you not live what it is that you find to be true for yourself because it's somebody else? Because when you do that, they've already won. So if you feel that they're a hindrance to your own spiritual development, that you're not being yourself in the way that honors you, independently of how they feel, then they've already short-circuited your growth, and then they get to be right about you not being successful.
And for the longest, that's how I felt about getting involved in, beginner mediumship classes.
Oh yeah.
What are people going to think of me doing this? Like my mom, still says, you're crazy. But what are the mass going to think? Like when I go to work, and they see it on, all my social media.
Yeah.
And I just got to a point where I'm like, I don't care.
Who cares? Yeah. Who cares? It's interesting. And if people aren't talking about you, you're not doing anything right.
I look at that.
If people aren't talking about you, you're really not living your life. Because you're inevitably, the world is filled with toes. And anybody who is doing something that they value is going to immediately trigger somebody else who knows that they need to do that, but refuses to do it, but by the modeling that they're witnessing is offended because they get caught up in their own rationalizations about why they're not doing it. And then they don't want other people to do it. The people who complain about the thing that's going on are the people who are doing it.
Yeah.
What people complain about says more about them than it does about the person.
Right. Well, and I love how what you're working on and what we're working on is reaching out and connecting. And I love how it's always coming back to connecting and reaching out and getting to different feeling of somebody or a spirit or something like that. So what I want to say is that I just totally lost my train of thought there. I don't know if you could feel that coming out of me as I was losing it. And there's some people coming around us right now, and I'm just like,
yeah, there's a whole bunch. We have a circle of
the connecting, and what I'm hearing from you is you've been very supported in your connections.
Yes.
And you're wanting to genuinely reach out and connect in whatever way that feels best to you.
Yes.
And one of the things that Rich and I have started reaching out to is spirit and locations and places.
Yes.
And that's just kind of one of those facets that we can reach to and connect with. And I didn't know if you had anything to say on that or how.
Well, one of the things about that I think is important and why I like what you do, and there are others that I also like. So when I was, prior to all of the things we're talking about here, that is, in that time when I had done that mandala for that guy and then that gap between there and doing this work, I was in Savannah, Georgia. And when I was in Savannah, Georgia, there's a ghost tour there called Afterlife Tours. And Ryan Dunn is the person who runs that with his wife. And they have a place in St. Augustine too. It's a little commercial spot. So, great guy. So I was there with him, and one of the places I could pick up on a little girl, and very few people could pick up a little girl in this one little kind of spot. And we started a conversation. I started doing work with him on a limited basis. I would give him some information. We kind of, on this weird, this circuitous route, like we won't talk for a long time, then we will. But what I loved about him, and what I think is very important with the work you're doing, is you have to, I think it's critical, to treat them like you would anybody. Because if you don't treat them with the respect and honor of their own inviolate spirit, don't bother. These people who go out, I will not name names, but these people who go out and say, show us yourself, tell us now, are you there? You know, they do this aggressive stuff. It's like, come on, would you do that to some child? Would you do that to a elderly?
Into someone's house and be
Are
like,
you busting?
how old are you?
In your house, and that's their house. That's their space. So we're, we're allowed there as a guest to their experience. And would you ever, as a guest, treat your host, because they're hosting it really, in that kind of caustic way? And do you really think that or do these people really think that that's going to create some kind of, I don't know, success? All it's going to do is create problems. So one of the things about Ryan that is really cool, and what you guys are doing too, is that it's more done from respect. Because I think with technology and with advancements that we have, we're going to get more and more connected to spirit. I just see that coming. Like people are going to have like little devices in their rooms which will flare up when they're spirits. They're like, hi Tom, good to see you.
Hey,
or the
Grandpa.
dog.
Just a phone call to heaven, you know?
Yeah, there's going to be more sensitivity about that. Yeah. Because they're so
Just understanding the continuity of life, you know, and taking their whole fear of death away, that we do go on.
Yes. Doing this kind of work, I'm really not afraid of, I want to do certain things. I mean, I have a kind of, I'm enjoying what I'm doing and I would like to do more of it. But death itself is just, I think death is actually much easier than birth. I think coming in is rough.
It's easier going out.
I think it's a lot easier going out. And I think that when people, in Buddhist tradition, they have a sense of it. And they'll just go, okay, I've completed my mission here, it's time for me to go. And they do so in a peaceful way. People here fight. They're like, we have to fight it, we have to combat it, we have to go to war. Well, is that really going to work? I mean, if I'm fueling an energy with that kind of negative fear, is that going to create a loving, balanced body? I don't think so. And when there is an illness or something, the body, which is true in the sense that its information is always a reflection of the life lesson necessary to learn, it's important information. Pay attention. You go, thank you, knee, for reminding me that I'm back in my ego. Thank you, hand, for reminding me that I'm not grasping what's going on in my life. Thank you, my eyes, for blurring from my ability to now remember because I'm not seeing things as they truly are. Thank you, ears, for diminishing so that you can remind me that I need to hear better. Right? The body, as Louise Hay does this, the body as a symbol for our, because the most important communication of the body, in my opinion, isn't how I'm communicating to you. It's how I'm communicating to me. And if I'm not getting those messages, how can I be there for other people in a way that allows them to understand their messages? So if I'm judging all of this and getting all crazy about it in a way that is negative, I'm going to then radiate that back to the other people and build that or support that in them. And so it's not effective. So basically what you were saying about loving and caring, it has to be a global experience, because where it's not present, there will be a consequence that will not be present.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny that you do soul mandalas, and they're like a soul imprint, and it's still kind of how I experience souls on the other side, is that they still kind of carry their essence to them. They still kind of carry that signature, which which is one of the ways that they can still kind of communicate and express themselves through us. How do you feel them or experience them?
Well, when I'm when I'm with, there's actually one of the designs in here kind of shows what it's like. Spiritual intensity in an afterlife or realm is a tunneling experience for me. So if I'm stepping back from it, the peripheral part blurs and the interior part becomes focused. The lens is blurred because what they're saying is, don't pay attention over here, don't look over there, look right here. Yeah, there's like a camera. The middle part is what you look at. And when I do that, I can feel it, or I will see something like move, and I'll go, what was that? Or I hear something.
And is this hearing externally or internally?
I've actually heard
seeing
something
internally, or both.
Well, I had a thing happen where I think somebody brought this in. So there was an attachment that came into the home or my place, and I was telling someone about this. And I'm in the living room, and the kitchen light is on, and it like. And then it kind of like stopped. I'm like, okay, I'm watching the news. And then it starts again. And then I go up and I try to see, wiring, what's going on here, what's happening. And I go back. And then I hear, and I hear,
You're like, okay, we got it done.
and then I was like, oh, and then I go back.
Yeah, that's exactly how you did, like, okay.
And then I go back, and then it does it again, but this time more like ferociously, and I just went. This was like, get the hell out of here now! For God's sakes, get out! You're not invited. And then it was gone.
Right. Yeah.
Because you can't, if you feed it, because some of them are hungry. If you feed it,
You're giving it that energy.
You're giving it the energy, and then you're going to end up getting into this weird tailspin about it. It's like we are. The point of power is in the now, right? So when we're in this 3D dense vibrational system, right? Basically the fundamental backbone of creation is in this foundation of 3D density, right? When you're in that density, you raise that density to some intention. It's like powerful. It's like taking instead of throwing like a softball or throwing a styrofoam ball at someone, you're throwing a cannonball because you're taking the energy that's dense, raising it up through intention, and then you can move it. So one of the things that people talk about, a lot of intuitives talk about why this planet is so cool, is this is the place where you can create a lot of movement. Because we have this lower vibrational backbone, as we were talking earlier, calling the Earth itself a root chakra, not only with a root chakra in Mount Shasta, but root chakra of the Earth. So when we're in that kind of root chakra state and we start elevating it, we're elevating all of that energy with it. And that is very intense. If you're in a high vibrational system where it's already very clean and you move it a little bit, it doesn't resonate in the same kind of way that this does. So when people are like, well, that's low vibration, it doesn't have any power. Well, it does when you take advantage of it. If you take high vibration, you go down, then you kind of miss the point. You take low vibration, you lift it up through your intentions, actions, loving, beliefs, and forgiveness. When you're doing that, then it has an influence that echoes across the universe.
Yeah.
Of course, the Seth material and others, entire planetary systems, even universes are created out of these powerful ideas because they have a radiant energy that goes right across the cosmos. And it comes in these moments of absolute faith and absolute courage in the face of adversity.
Even like connecting with spirit, think up.
Yes.
Raise your vibration up.
Yes.
Spirit lowers theirs and connects to.
Yes. And a lot of times with challenges, what is lovely about a challenge, I've seen lecturers talk about the greatest day of my life was when I found out I had terminal cancer. The greatest day of my life was when I found out, all of these people.
That's when they start living.
Because then they're like, I get it.
Yeah.
the body, in my opinion, the body can be sacrificed to the lesson, but the lesson is what matters. You know, the lesson is what it's all about. Because when we're looking at this experimental experience of being in this world, it's like, okay, today class.
What are we going to cook today?
Today we're going to
What's
make
our cake?
whatever. Today we're going to make a friendship, or today we're going to make a creative act, or today we're going to make a connection.
And when you think of it that way, it can be fun. You know what I mean? Like,
it's an adventure. It should be seen as an adventure.
Right.
Yeah, right. And the other thing that's really, really cool too is that, and I think in this world that's so obsessed with appearance and media presence, and you know, how many followers do I have on TikTok? Oh God, help us. So all of that stuff is. So these things serve as a distraction. So one of the things that I think is happening is that the status quo way of looking at the world, which is grounded in fear, which means that I achieve my net worth is my net worth, my self-worth, right? So that kind of thinking really hasn't gotten people very far. Because if you look at some of these people who have, even in the billionaires, many of them have profound mental health issues. They're very sick. The suicide rate's the same. So if they're having money was the answer, why are they all? Or they're dying early, like they can't even make it to 60 somehow. If money were really the answer, then why are they happier? If money were the answer, why are they living longer? If money were the answer, why are their relationships such a mess? You know, and it's so many of them. Yeah, and what are they really getting if you can't take that with you? You can learn the lesson of achievement, prosperity. You can take that with you. You can learn self-confidence and the courage and self-expression. Wonderful. That's fine. But if I do that and I say that I am, because of that, am different or better than you, I've missed the whole point of it.
Yeah,
if I'm doing
valuing money, whereas we need to value ourselves.
We need to value ourselves, because how can we value other people? And our sense of personal self-value, which is independent of the attachment of achievement, a kind of a reflective internal development that is dependent upon our self-approval, independent of whether or not we achieve anything. If that isn't resonant within us, how in the hell can we be there for other people? How can we say, well, I love them if I don't love me? How can I say, well, I support them if I don't believe in myself? How can I go on and do any of that stuff if I'm not practicing what I preach? You know, it's insane in so many ways. And I think what's happening is that in the Great Divide, or the Grand Canyon as they're calling it, in the world where we have so many people controlling so much of our wealth, etc., and such as, you know, and then so many others just, you know, occupying a teeny part of that economy. Well, I think that what's beginning to occur in this Great Awakening is that group is coming alive, and the intensity about this is coming to a head, and that is why we're seeing so much conflict, because the status quo isn't working anymore, and people are waking up to that. And people who the great exodus with the working world, thank you COVID, people are looking at their jobs and going, this is not working for me. This just is not working. I'm not getting any, this is not satisfying me. And I, you know, I'm getting by, but I can get by doing other things. This is not all that's available to me. And as people make those tiny little shifts in what it is that they're doing, it models it for other people. And the newbies, the kids coming in these days are amazing.
Yeah, they are. I know.
They're amazing. They have so much light and love to them, and they're like, screw that crap. I'm going to, and then they end up creating and inventing all sorts of new ways of generating income.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
You're a trance medium.
Yes.
And you do these beautiful mandalas.
Yes.
Can you talk about that and how they heal and how they help?
Well, they have their own kind of, so these energy patterns. All right, so this is going to be a little out there, but I'll speak to it. Some people who have had experiences of close encounters say that they have witnessed devices that create shapes and designs based on thoughts that have a basic formula to them. So we have our own periodic table that goes to the creation of all of the different kinds of matter that exists on this planet, right? There is in the cosmology or in the philosophy of the universe, there's basic tenets of information that can be represented as a physical form that create the fabric of our reality. So you could call it the periodic table of the universe. And I'm not necessarily saying like I've nailed all of that or gotten it perfect, far from it. But people who have had experiences in that realm say when they look at that, they've seen these before. I have had people, and I've looked and Googled anybody who does, to see if I can find anybody who does this. I haven't found anybody. And if they exist, please let me know, because I'm all into it. I really am. Plenty of room for everybody. I know I'm not the only one out there. So when I'm with somebody, like I'll get an impression, right? So, and then I'll start doing the shape. And the shape may be just an amorphous, amoebic-like shape. It could be a star, it could be something. And then I start putting it out there, like, okay, guys, show me what to do. And then I'll wake up in the morning and I'll get it. And it usually happens between like more a little bit later, right? Between 4 and like when I wake up. So for me, what happens is I'm always up like about 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm very winged dire that way. I can't help it. I just wake up because it's like the spine of the earth. It's like, wake up. Then I go back to bed. And then in that time, the REM state is very deep. I'm in a real heavy theta wave, right? At that moment, I get visuals that I can recall for a brief period of time, and I write them down. And then I build from it, right? So once I have the skeleton done, I do it till I feel like it's complete, which is like the spine tingling thing. Another cosmic alert. Like I can feel my spine like, oh, that's it. Then I do the gray, and then I do the color. And the color is tricky because sometimes the designs are shifting in their color spectrum. It might go from,
like
from blue to green, from blue to blue-green to light green, and then back to blue, back to purple. And I'm doing a snapshot of it, right?
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah.
It's like that. So once I've gotten it down and it feels accurate, meaning that the colors are resonating in the proper sequence, then I'm complete. And then I think about the person and I go, okay, the affirmation that goes with this person is this. And then I have a spoken word with the image. And then once I have that complete, then I go, okay, we need to figure out the language that's genetically relevant to them. So it could be Galatian, it could be Arabic, it could be Hebrew, it could be Tamil, it could be, I've had a lot of Russian. I had a lot of different languages, and when I put it in, I tell them in the language it's in. So sound, right? Sound has a vibrational system that influences us, and the language of our genetics influences us, just like our DNA is influenced by certain dietary patterns. Sound has a frequency that echoes through us that allows us to have a better result. When people speak in the language of their spirit, even though they're English speaking, it has more of an influence. And that's how it works.
Do you think the language choices too also have to do with their genealogy and helping to heal their
It has to do with, well, I've had people say to me like, well, I really don't connect to that anymore the way I did. And I said, yeah, but you have an issue connected to that in your background. Like some people will say, oh no, my French side, I hate that part. Well, that's the part that needs the love, and that's the part that needs to hear this.
Yeah.
And then they'll fight me on it. Yeah. They'll say, I'm like, no, because just do it. And they're like, oh. I said, yeah, think about it. What part of that brain that isn't getting the nurturing that it deserves is crying out for help? Well, what it wants to be is love, right? So if you say that affirmation and you support that and you do it to that specific direction, you're going to have more impact. You could do it in the English. If you need help, you can always find the translations online. But that potency, I think, is important. And then I give it to them in different formats. I give it to them in the black and white line and color. And then some of these things can be adapted into all sorts of, from like jewelry to sculptural forms to you name it.
Well, even sitting down here when you made us pick ours, I mean, that was so on point, you know? And
yeah. But people will go through. So I have this book, and in it, I will have all these little samples, and like what you experience, I'll ask people to pick the one that they resonate with, and then the affirmation is appropriate, because the image and the affirmation and the person and the idea and the cosmology are one idea.
And how long does a session take? You sit down with somebody.
Well, the session is built in to the actual fee, but the session could be quick, it could be an hour. The delivery can be less. Because I review what the metaphors are, but they usually know. Like most people are wearing the color of the thing that I give them.
Right.
Like if it's in purple, they're wearing purple. If it's in brown, they're wearing brown.
Oh,
It's really crazy that way.
Your unconscious almost knows.
It's all like it knows. It always, all of the symbols of our clothing are represented in the energetic patterns of our consciousness, and they're all connect with other beings too. So when I'm developing the whole system, though, that can take time. It can take upwards of 20, 30 hours in some cases. And some of the people are such perfectionists that to get the thing right takes a lot of editing and work to make sure that it's just so. So I have to constantly modify it to make sure that it's on point and reflects them and their true nature. And also, if it doesn't align properly, the disconnect of it can throw the whole thing off.
Interesting.
Yeah, it has to be the right fit.
I believe that.
And most of the designs in sacred geometry, the way that they are most effective is the way they interact with one another. Like all of the lines line up. You know, it's wild, you know, they're all balanced.
Well, now being a resident of the area,
Yes.
we wanted to bring like the Long Valley tie into all this. We're filming at the Long Valley Pub. Maybe after we're done, we can step outside a little and talk about the place itself.
Yes.
And the feeling of Long Valley. I feel this place has a lot of energy, a lot of stories
German
to be
Valley,
told.
yes.
So maybe we'll leave. It's getting busy. It's getting noisy.
Yes.
And we'll step outside. We'll talk a little bit about Long Valley, your connection to the area.
Yes.
And we'll go for a little walk. The sun is out, so
Yay.
so let's go outside.
All right, very good.